Exodus chapter 21, verse 1 through 11. Now these are the rules that you shall set before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free, for nothing. If he comes in single, he shall go out in single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to God, and he shall bring him to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall be a slave forever. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as with the daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go out for nothing, without payment of money. Although the word slave may connote a negative image in the 21st century, the form of slavery that God speaks of in today's passage is a way to escape from poverty amongst the Israelite community. For the first regulation, God gives a specific term of being a slave to a total of 6 years, and are freed on the 7th. If the person wanted to remain in the household permanently, they only needed to show their allegiance by bearing his ear through with an awl. During the 6-year time frame, the person was given housing and food in exchange for household chores and labor. Because of this, whatever the person acquired during this time did not officially belong to the person, but to the master of the household. For the next regulation, the instruction becomes a bit more specific towards female slaves. The circumstance of becoming a slave was like the first, in that it was to escape from poverty. However, for the females, it came with the possibility of marriage. This was to allow for the person to escape poverty and find a secure household once again. If the master does not wish for the marriage to occur, then just like the first regulation, the female slave can go free without having received anything, since all of her service has been paid for with housing and food for the duration of her stay. One thing we need to understand about this regulation is that this is a voluntary act. The people wishing for slavery are finding a way to escape from a very difficult situation that often involved extreme poverty. What God was commanding Israel to do was to look after the poor and the weak. And the very heart of God that desires to help the needy and the poor are seen throughout the scriptures. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 22 and 23 says, Do not rob the poor because he is poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate. For the Lord will plead their cause and rob of life those who rob them. Luke chapter 14 verse 12 through 14 says, He also said to the man who had invited him, When you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you will be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. Our God is the God of compassion. His heart is always looking to those who are in need, and He commands His holy people to be His hands and feet to care for them and help them in times of need. As we meditate on today's passage, let us strive to understand the heart of God and be willing to help those around us that God has sent our way with the very love that we have received from Jesus Christ.